seara și bine v-am regăsit la podcastul CriticArad. Astăzi o să avem un invitat mai special, Boaz Aviram, fost soldat în IDF și momentan instructor de Krav Maga, anume Krav Maga pur, în Statele Unite ale Americii. Mr. Boaz,
hi.
Hello, welcome, and thank you so much for accepting our invitation. Okay, so I want to start with you.
Okay.
Tonight I have some questions about what Krav Maga is,
Okay.
how it works, how you got into the business, into the sport.
Okay.
And I want to start with you leaving the IDF. You were in the IDF for 3 years, you said?
Mm-hmm. Yeah. No, 3
And
years, yeah.
yeah, and you were head of the Krav Maga instructing
3 years,
this. Instructing the. Why did you leave that position? Why did you no longer want to be the head?
And in order to stay there, I had to become permanent. And they said it's going to take a month to become permanent, so I'm going to have to extend my mandatory service. And I wasn't crazy about wearing uniform. I mean, the advantage of being in a military base that had a lot of sports was, and when you teach, you don't have to have, the hat on, the beret or whatever. But as a soldier, you're supposed to carry and have it on most of the time. Especially when you're in the base. That wasn't the main reason, but whenever you're in the military, you're subject to all kind of officer, supervisor, base commander, and all kind of stuff. And I didn't want to stay there forever. I think I've learned. I did 70 years of martial arts as a youth. I did karate competition. I did a 200 fight kumite for my second dan in Kyokushin. And I did 1 year of the infantry, basic training in the infantry with ambushes in Lebanon. And I didn't want to do another 2 years in Lebanon. So I heard that, from somebody there is an option to become an instructor for Krav Maga. And I did what I had to do, and I got there, and I was there for 2 years. I didn't want to stay there because at some point I was also training sky marshals in the IDF. They used to come over there to train, and they offered me a job to train them, and it was like I didn't have to wear a uniform, and it was probably more money and all that. So I figured out I'm going to train sky marshal instead of people in the military. So that's why I left, basically. Otherwise, I would have done it for 10, 20 years or whatever as a career. I didn't want to do it as a career. But I think I've reached the top that anybody can in martial arts. It's like when I was there, when I got there, they didn't have an immediate course for Krav Maga instructors. So the assistant instructor at the time was working with me and training me privately. He was showing me a few techniques, and then I had to go and teach him in a class. I had a second degree in karate, but they told me it's irrelevant. They do Krav Maga, it's different. Okay, so you want to continue the same topic?
Yes.
So, again, I didn't want to stay in the military because I didn't like military life, although compared to other units, it was pretty much free. During the courses, I had to live on a base. Probably if I would be as a job, as an officer job that is not part of the 3-year duty, I could probably go home. But usually, it's like the head used to go home. The assistant instructor used to stay over there and teach. And it all depends if you have an assistant instructor or not. Sometimes you didn't. I think in Krav Maga in the IDF was pretty much, you had a lot of free time to work out or do a lot of stuff. I didn't like to live on a base. And I got an opportunity to teach sky marshals, so I left there, and then for another 3 years I was teaching a couple hours in the morning, and then in the afternoon and during the day I was sitting in a swimming pool, and then when the course was over, I went to Tel Aviv and to a bar and hang out every morning and go to the beach basically. So that was basically my career in Krav Maga. At the same time of my 2 years of Krav Maga in the IDF, I met, my instructor was the best student of the founder of Emir Lichtenfeld. They used to call him Emi. Some people call him Emmy. But so I met also the founder, and he started inviting me to his house on the weekends, and he talked to me and wanted to make sure that I know everything, and he also suggested that I'm going to go to the head instructor's he has a private school and learn Krav Maga with belts. It was like 5 years to get a black belt. Because I took by then I also took the 3-week IDF Krav Maga course. Because I took that course, I started going to the bi-weekly sessions. So I already knew everything. It was just socializing, rehearsing some technique, and having somebody to practice with constantly. So I did that for 5 years. Even when I finished the military, when I did Sky Marshal, I got my black belt, and then I took a course that was mostly teaching you the theory of sports, and it was like a coach course, and it was like a requirement to get a second Dan. So I got my second Dan from the Krav Maga Civilian Association, and I was teaching Sky Marshal at the time, and then I decided to move to the United States basically.
Just 1 second.
So, during my 5 years as a civilian, when I was in the IDF, basically the first course that I was teaching, so when I was teaching the IDF, the first course, which was a 3-week course, the chief instructor, which was the head of the department, supervised me, and after that I was on my own. I was basically teaching and testing people for instructor. The 3-week course basically consisted of a 21-hour curriculum where you learn 215 techniques and about 15 training drills. The rest of the day was dedicated for morning run, all kind of workouts, and they had some other sports instructor that gave all kind of sports game. That curriculum of 215 techniques over 3 weeks you could teach in 5 days, but it was repeated 3 times for the purpose of lesson evaluation. So every one of the student can set up in front of a class and teach, pick up so get comfortable with teaching. In that 21-hour curriculum, you basically, the idea is to expose somebody to multiple method of reaching somebody's pressure points and controlling them, or not letting an opponent control you with your pressure points. The uniqueness of Krav Maga, comparing to martial arts, it's basically over time, when martial arts were trained in civilian school, they try to make it fun activity, and they didn't want any injury. I mean, nobody wants injury even in hand-to-hand combat, but they concentrated on techniques that are not lethal, and people, at some point, people didn't even learn how to make the techniques lethal. So Krav Maga basically reversed that. It changed everything to a point where how to make it lethal as quickly as possible with minimum force, so you don't have to sweat too much, you have to immediately. So the approach was, what is defined hand-to-hand combat, that means that when somebody is within reach, so you can use your hand, legs, or your body, you concentrate only on that distance. You know, from a distance you can reach him, and closer. So the idea was to limit it by the human reaction time. There's a point where it's too late to react. If somebody already control your pressure point by distraction or by pain, then your brain cannot give you a command to counter it and to try to hurt him at that point. So with that limit, they changed some of the techniques, and they worked on how to make the element of surprise in a close range, how to attack somebody with surprise, which means even if, if he can see you, you have to consider the element of reaction time. So when you attack, you won't be able to block, and if he blocks, you have a counter for that.
How often are IDF soldiers forced to use hand-to-hand combat? How often are IDF soldiers forced to use?
I'm not sure about today, but at the time, no, not everybody gets to train it. You have, everyone has to join the IDF. It used to be 3 years for both men and women. At some point, it was 2 years for women, and then it changed to 2 years for men as well. Right now, it depends on your age. You have a lot of immigrants, and if you're after a certain age, then you can do it. Take a few courses and break down even your training in certain units. But 3 years was mandatory, where you don't get paid. You get just money for the bus, probably like $20 a month or whatever that time. And people that go to infantry or fighting units would spend 1 week in the combat fitness academy, and in that week they would get 15 hours of Krav Maga. Some of the unit will get 6 hours. If you're an officer course, you would get 15 hours. Some really special unit will get 15. The whole curriculum is 21 hours, and if it's a military police, they're going to add all kind of restraining techniques that they wouldn't put in the rest. But the instructors learn everything. They learn 21 hour 215 techniques. For example, if you're in infantry, you learn how to use a bayonet. You learn how to punch, how to do basic kicks, front and side kick. You learn a couple throws, and maybe you'll do a little grappling, but usually not. So you learn how to use a knife basically. The instructor will learn all kind of grappling methods, how to escape from martial artists and all that, from grappling, from throws, and and how to block everything basically. How to block a knife, but only in a special unit will learn it, and officers in special unit will learn everything. So at the time, basically, it was reserved for people that the IDF wanted to give a prize or something, but not everybody learns everything.
Thank you. We'll get back to that. I want to introduce our other guest, Mohammed Salahuddin.
Hello.
Hello. Tell us a bit about yourself. You said you're from the United Kingdom.
That's correct. I'm from London. I'm a pure Krav Maga master instructor trained by Boaz Aviram himself. I have been practicing Krav Maga and teaching Krav Maga for over 10 years now. At the moment, I'm teaching at UCL, University College London, where we have a number of students who are very interested in learning Krav Maga. So my objective is to teach pure Krav Maga to students and pass on the knowledge that Boaz has given to me to other students, and follow the Krav Maga objective, which is so that one may walk in peace, so that one may feel comfortable, confident, and feel safe wherever they are, and that is what I am doing.
Newly recruited females, you used to train them in defense against kidnapping or sexual attack or something like that. It was concentrated basically on couple of kicks, elbows, and escape from ground techniques, and standing up from chokes and hold, hair pull, or grabbing somebody try to kidnap you.
And I assume every Israeli woman knows
at some point, because there are females that were going to the basic training. When you go to basic training, you get a rifle, and unfortunately, they didn't have transportation for the soldiers, so they were hitchhiking on the way home. And if you're in a far base, you have to stay in a place that there's not too many people. Some women got attacked, raped, and their weapon was stolen and all that. So, well, unfortunately, I mean, you know, if they had a weapon, they should have shot with somebody, but I guess.
But they don't carry a rifle at all times.
Well, if you're not in basic training, but if you're a soldier that, let's say your unit, your base is in the desert and you have to commute home, you would have a rifle.
Yeah, so they have it always.
Well,
even when
they don't
duty.
have it loaded all the time, but they have the magazine in their pocket. You know, in certain area, you should have the magazine inside, you know, and then all you have to do is that. But unfortunately, you're standing in a bus station or a place like that, somebody can walk to you and, you know, and get too close, and then it's too late, basically.
Okay, and this is a question for the both of you.
Yeah.
How different is it teaching regular civilians Krav Maga like you do in London and you do in New York, compared to, you know, professional soldiers or conscripted soldiers?
You asking me or him?
Both of you.
Okay.
Both of you. I want to hear both of your perspectives on that, starting with you.
Yes, sure. First of all, when we teach civilians, of course, I don't have the experience of teaching IDF soldiers, but I do have students who have been members of the police and armed forces in the United Kingdom and some other parts of the world as well. I think we focus on making sure that students feel safe once they learn how to defend themselves. We need to make sure that they can defend themselves in any situation that they might find themselves in. And it is not necessarily that they will use that skill on a day-to-day basis, but what happens in my experience is that when students learn how to defend themselves, the necessity to use violence goes down. So in a situation where someone is not trained, who may end up using force as the first resource, where someone who is trained, they are able to handle the situation much more calmly. I think one of the things that you need to consider when training civilians is that they are not a member of the armed force. They are not there where they will have to follow your command. So you have to kind of get them on board with what you are doing. But in terms of the training curriculum, I doubt that there is any difference whatsoever. It is exactly the same curriculum that was taught at the IDF, and he taught the civilians as well. And that is the same curriculum, following the same methods and methodology are passed on to the student. And I will pass it on to Boaz for your perspective on what do you think is the difference between...
What do I think, what?
Is the difference between teaching an IDF soldier and an ordinary citizen?
Both Krav Maga?
Yeah.
Okay. Basically in the IDF, in a short amount of time, you introduce somebody to death by somebody else's hand in any way possible. You know, whether it's impact, punching, kicking, a deadly hit, either that or somebody will fall and hit their head on the ground. Throwing, again, smashing the head on the floor, plucking the throat out, the airways. You know, if you take the eyes out or poke them, then either you lose vision temporarily, or you know, you can still, you might not be able to see, but you know, it's not really deadly. The idea is to cause somebody enough pain so he's not going to attack you. And if you have to kill, if a few people are attacking you, then you have to make sure that once you deal with the other one, the first one is not going to wake up and come back and attack you. You don't really have time to tie anybody up. And some people don't have the force to do that, physical force. So, you know, the advantage of somebody grabbing you is he doesn't think that you're dangerous, so he thinks that he can overpower you and he will choke you or do anything like that instead of start hitting you or using a weapon. So the idea in the IDF was to introduce somebody to all methods possible, you're not going to teach every technique, but you're going to see from all the angles what is coming to you. And to the point where you realize you don't want to be in that scenario and you have to stop it before it's too late. If you think you can't handle that, then before the person got close to you, you have to think what's your best option. And it was done intensively. And basically, you teach somebody the pressure points, how to cause pain or death to everybody from any angle possible. Sometimes it's a distraction to get them to a point you have enough pain so you can reach a vital pressure point. Sometimes it's not going to be available to you immediately. And how to manipulate it, how to break somebody's finger, neck, arms, knock out with a punch, strike the throat and all that stuff. And if somebody grabs you, start rolling you, how to reach a pressure point and escape. And same thing with a knife, how not to get stabbed, and how to counterattack if somebody has a knife or a stick.
Did you see a lot of death in your time? Did you see a lot of death in your time in the IDF?
I can't hear.
Death. How much death did you see in
death?
Yeah.
Death happened immediately. You're not looking to kill people, but what is self-defense? If somebody's bullying you at school, is based on your fear. So it could be even a big kid or whatever. But even if somebody takes martial arts, they don't know everything. And if you have fear, everybody have a natural fear to hurt other people. And when somebody's already close to you, bullying you, and you feel their hand over here, then it might even be too late. And if they're hurting you, you're not going to be in control. So if you practice gradually how to not let somebody do that or cause them enough pain so he won't be able to do that, then you get to a point where somebody, when you practice, you're not going to hurt somebody. You're going to try to reach his pressure point, and he's going to try to stop you from doing it. You're going to try to escape if he grabs you and lightly hurt him on a soft pressure point. So you understand. Now, over in the IDF, you did instantly. Within 3 weeks, you also got to do sparring, and you got correction of every mistake. You had 20 people in a class that if they made a mistake, they got corrected on the spot. And the advantage of intensively, you do 1 hour warm-up for the day, and then you work on techniques one after the other. When you go to a school, it's an hour or 2 hours at a time, twice a week. It has to fit for people's schedule, usually in the evening. And you have 250 techniques. People teach them normally over 4 or 5 years. The class is 45 minutes usually. 15-20 minutes is fitness and warm-up, stretching, push-ups, sit-ups, running around, and maybe 20 minutes for technique. You teach 1 or 2 techniques, and then you finish it with fitness again. So people don't have to go to the gym. They do 2 or 3 sets of sit-ups and push-ups, and they put their money in the martial arts schools instead of doing both. Some people do both. They go to martial arts school and go to the gym, but it's over, and it's based on belt. You stay there, you get a belt, you get promoted. The material is broken down, so you don't see the whole picture immediately. If done properly, it can be done right. In the end of the 5 years, you should be able to do the same. The problem is people come and go, and a lot of time you have new students, so you have to put them on a side and have somebody train them. And again, fitness and a couple techniques and all that. You are going to learn something. But over 5 generations of people learning like that, getting a black belt, not a lot of people not only can teach it right, the techniques properly, the reaction time. A lot of times somebody missed his essential class. You think that over 4 years he's going to rehearse and all that, but for some reason, you go to a lot of school, you had a black belt that didn't understand what's the limits of the human reaction time. They didn't understand how to create impact with weight and speed with a punch or a kick. They didn't understand where exactly to stop or block before it's too late. It happened over, 5 generations. And I think it also happened in most of the other martial arts. Also, a lot of time, if you have kids in a class, people didn't want to teach certain things. And unfortunately, things got lost. I think, or I'm sure that one of the elements that's, if you give a black belt to somebody, you did not want him to open a school next door. It would be competition. So people reserve a lot of stuff if they knew anything for themselves to a point that if you knew it all, it wasn't enough to fight. Unfortunately, anything that you teach, there is choreography involved. It's part of the learning process to move from one point A to B without hurting somebody, and you pretend that you have somebody, but in the end, you have to know how to hurt somebody before they hurt you, and it's very complex and involved. So, if you do sparring, if you punch somebody, you don't want to penetrate more than a few millimeters to a point that it's just going to feel a surprise shock. If you knock him out, then he won't be able to train for a few months, and a couple of times he's going to have a problem with his head. So you really don't want to do that. And you might slap him to understand to a point he's not attacking you anymore. But you try to keep it safe, and you cannot pluck somebody's throat, and have somebody try to fix it. You put a little pressure, and until he feels it, and once in a while, it's like it happens. People
get hurt,
try to make each other pass out and all that. They had even a Krav Maga instructor that wanted to make sure that you're gonna get knocked out at least once in your life. So how do you do it for somebody you already trained? You talk to him and have somebody else hit it from the side and all that. It happened and all that stuff. But all these things are dangerous, and for the average person that comes there, somebody sending their kids, their wives and all that to learn, people really don't want to go through that experience. So the idea to do it as safe as possible, to when you hit a punching mitt, you want to hear enough noise and see it moving back with enough speed, and then you compare it to a punch of somebody that have the experience of knocking somebody out, and that's the only way you can figure it out. A lot of people learn on their own. It's like I've done karate for 7 years, and I moved to full contact, but before that, I was attacked by a gang of kids. It was like a teenager. I was younger, and I'd say about 7, 8 kids were waiting by the movie theater, and I walked by. They all ganged up on me, and I remember they started attacking me. So I remember doing the roundhouse kick to somebody. He was standing on his side. I hit his back. He fell, and another kid came to my face. I tried to punch him. But when you train karate, you train to mark to the face. Instinctively, I went for the face, not for the body. And then in karate, you go for the body. And I did 5 punches. He was shocked from the punches, but I didn't touch him because I always marked. And in karate, when you do a full punch, you can't move anymore because you move to a marking distance. With Krav Maga, you do a boxing punch, but you do a distance where you can pass him, but when you practice on a bag or a mitt, you hit it hard. When you practice on a person, you hit it fast with all the weight, but you stop before you penetrate more than it is. So you just go for the skin, or you just blow wind in his face. So they give you an advantage. If you need to, is you just extend your hand another inches. If your foot stopped in karate and you stop your punch here, you cannot go another inches. You'd have to step closer, and if you're not training for that, then it's never going to happen. So you learn a little bit on your own. After that, I had another fight when I was in the military. Actually, even before I did Krav Maga, when I was in the infantry, I had a couple people come close to me, in a circle. The old soldiers, I was a soldier too. So one of them was just standing like that close to me. The other one was reaching and smacking me. So I put my hand on his shoulder and I hit him in the temple with a knuckle. He went down. And while he was falling down, I was kicking the other one with a heel of the military boot in the chest. So he got his heart out of rhythm. He fell down, lay down for 7 seconds without moving like a dead body. Then he jumped up, picked up something, tried to hit me again. But before he hit me, he fell down again. It's like, so the pressure went down because of the heart stopped working. And then he came up again. And for the rest of the people, I just try to scare him by pulling my sleeve. They just, I got stabbed in the back after as a revenge. We were standing in, to check if we shaved before we went to a bar. My sergeant was behind me in the dark, and somebody reached behind with a knife, and I got stabbed. I didn't want to chase him because I was afraid he got my bladder. But, luckily it was like between the spine and the bladder. So, that was before I learned Krav Maga. When I learned Krav Maga, I learned to deal with it. So, if it was a couple fight, I was able to just, distract somebody, a couple of slaps and all that stuff. But, it's a couple of times in a bar, a couple of people try to start a fight, but, I just stopped them with body position.
So you're from Israel, you live in New York now,
Yeah.
and he's from London, and you teach in London.
That's correct.
These are three quite dangerous places in the world for different reasons, but dangerous still. What makes Krav Maga more effective or different compared to other self-defense based martial arts?
If I may start, often we use the terms martial arts, combat systems, self-defense interchangeably. I would first of all like to clarify that they all have different objectives, and often the way they're understood. When we talk about martial art, in today's day and time, we often refer to the traditional martial arts, which often have lost their original intended combat application and focuses more on self-discipline and looking at a way of life. You often learn the techniques, but you also need to look into the specific need of that particular martial art, like when it was developed, in what period, for which type of situation it was used, it was developed to use, which sometimes does not necessarily is compatible with the dangers that we face in today's day and time. On the other hand, we have combat sports. So for example, you can think about boxing, you can think about Muay Thai, kickboxing, and you compete within those particular sports with a specific set of rules, and your objective is to win. You win against an opponent within a specified set of rules, and you become probably at the peak, you become a world champion of something. So the way those systems evolve has got different priorities in mind. It does not have the priority in mind to keep yourself safe when you're out and about on the street.
It's a spectacle, mostly.
That's one way of looking at it, but it would have some real-life application as well, but that is not necessarily the most optimized way of dealing with things when it happens in a real-life situation. Krav Maga, on the other hand, it deals with the issues directly in a straightforward manner. It does not require you to change your lifestyle. The objective is not to become a champion in anything. The objective is to survive against any attacker, in any situation, potentially against multiple attackers. And it doesn't matter whether they're attacking you unarmed, so they're trying to punch you, kick you, they're trying to choke you, grapple you, taking you down to the floor, or they're attacking you with a knife, they're attacking with a stick, or they're threatening you with a gun. So Krav Maga deals with all those issues directly, provides you an answer, looks for the most efficient threats, and teaches you how to deal with those most efficient threats in the most efficient manner. And if you learn to deal with the most efficient threats in the most efficient manner, and it is not necessarily that everyone will teach you in the attack you in the most efficient way. But if you know how to deal with the most efficient attack, if there is any inefficient attacker, you will be able to deal with it much, much better. So I would say one of the things that makes Krav Maga, particularly pure Krav Maga, the way it's taught by Boaz, makes it stand out from the other martial arts or sports combats or self-defense system, is that it addresses the issues directly. That's one of the things. The other thing I would say is that the way pure Krav Maga is taught, it is significantly, it can be learned in a significantly faster time period, shorter time period than if you compare it to a traditional martial art or a sports combat. And we have discussed already that the objectives are not the same even to begin with. So you're looking at the most efficient way of dealing with things, most efficient way of dealing with the most efficient attacks, but also you are learning it in a very short time period. So Boaz focuses on teaching a 5-day course, 5-day intensive course. And if you are someone who is a civilian and who does not have any prior knowledge in any martial art or sports combat, you can go through this 5-day course where both your body and mind will be programmed. You will learn the techniques, and you will go through a number of different drills which will kind of like install the pure Krav Maga program in your body and in your mind. And you can say you are reasonably competent to be able to survive any situation. Of course, it doesn't guarantee anything. Just because you have learned to drive doesn't necessarily mean that you will never have an accident, but it is a much better idea to drive after you have learned to drive. So pure Krav Maga, potentially within a 5-day course, you can, from someone who doesn't know anything to someone who is reasonably competent, to be able to defend yourself in any situation. So the key points I would say: A, dealing with the most efficient attacks in the most efficient manner, and learn within a very short period of time, which can be learned by anyone of reasonable health. And they can feel, again, realistically comfortable that they will be able to defend themselves against any attacker in any situation. That's my view. I'll pass it on to Boaz to see what he thinks. You might need to ask the question to Boaz again.
Well, when I was teaching in the IDF, when it comes to sparring, well, when you teach the technique, basically, let's say you teach front punch and a cross punch, basically simple things that boxers do. It takes 1 hour to teach it. In boxing, you have years to train and all that stuff. You know, you beat the bag and all that. When you have strong enough punch, you go for sparring. You basically try to teach the theory of impact, which is a momentum, has to do with speed and weight shift in the right time, and how much you penetrate a target, all that. So you stand up 20 people on a line, and everybody's punching, and you correct every movement. It's like throwing a ball or serving a tennis. You have to do it in a certain technique. And you correct, you know, if it has to start with a certain sequence. And immediately you teach of doing everything with a lunge. Not only, like karate, a lot of time they practice the kick from the spot. And you know, they just walk and do the kick or whatever. It's like a certain point, today they do a little shuttle boxing. So at the end of the course, a lot of time I had like 1 or 2 or 3 black belts in various martial arts. I had one in sambo. I had a boxer, a couple of boxers actually. I had a couple of Israeli boxing champions I used to spar with on the way to the dining room, and you know, judo black belt, jiu-jitsu black belt, and all that. And when it came to sparring, you know, used to separate it to grappling and to punches and kicks, because otherwise, you know, sometimes they continued a little bit, but you know, you stop it where somebody's neck is on the line. But you know, you spar until there is an advantage. You don't wait for somebody to kill somebody on the ground. A lot of time, people that never took any martial arts, never did any sports, well, they just, you know, they're in good shape because of the basic training. prevailed with somebody that had a black belt in martial arts. And the only reason is that, and it's not only my opinion, it's by my predecessor, is because the person that learned other martial arts needed more time to unlearn what he learned before. So if somebody goes to school and learn karate, he does that for an hour or whatever, somebody corrects them, that okay, your shoulder's straight or whatever, then they try to break boards. So they give you a little, after a couple of years, you try to break boards, they tell you to do it stronger, faster, do push-ups on the knuckles, so it'll be tougher, it's not gonna hurt, until you break the board. You start with a thin board, you go to heavier, and you're forced to do something, and you try until you do it or you don't. But because of the intensity of the mechanic, you want to improve somebody so when they kick, they have maximum speed, reach maximum distance with a lunge, and they have sufficient effect for a knockout or to break somebody's knee or to hit him that he's going to fall with an impact. And a lot of martial arts don't. They go to competition, they get pain, they get kicked. Most of the time, nobody breaks their leg. They get muscle cramp. If they get a knockout, they have to rest for a couple months.
Okay.
So that's basically the advantage, because they work on the sport aspect of training how not to hurt somebody, and you concentrate, you condition them to go for the throat immediately. I mean, not that if you learn sports or other martial arts, you don't see it sometimes, but it's like if whatever we do in a safe drill, they do all the time. So this is why I think the advantage. Also, I mean, suitable for everyone means that you try to get as much as martial arts experience or sparring or violent interaction with people as you can in a safe way. So breaking it down to a safe segments, and this is what you concentrated. So I mean, sports martial arts concentrate on performing good-looking technique, impressive technique, good show, and sparring, which is basically physical, but it's almost like chasing somebody around a car, and you have to evade. You do it in grappling with your body. Somebody puts pressure on one side, you go to the other, but very rarely you end up with a choke. In jiu-jitsu, sometimes end up with a choke. Either person pass out or not. But if you try to apply judo against boxers, if you don't practice the punches, then it's very hard, to grab somebody while he's moving around and punching or kicking or stabbing with a knife. It's totally different thing. So this, the intensity and the gearing towards, weapon, knife and all that stuff. Surprise attack makes you aware of beware of surprise attack, and you try to keep distance from people and not let it happen.
Okay. I got it. Thank you for that. And that was my last question. Thank you both for coming, for your insight, and for what you do.
And maybe one more thing I'm gonna add.
Go on.
Okay. I'm getting old and older. I published a couple books, and I use my past experience, but I think there is a problem with civilian Krav Maga school that they're not really, serving the purpose. It becomes more of a fun sport. So this is why I'm going around the world trying to find structure to leave something that's going to be authentic. And Pavel here has taken the classes. I did a couple courses, so every time he trains also. He's going to try to, he also has jiu-jitsu and katana and all that, but he's trying to promote more the self-defense aspect and the Krav Maga for all people that want to learn how to defend themselves quickly and, knife and all that stuff. And,
Okay. Thank you. And again, thank you for coming. Acesta a fost podcastul CriticArad. Vă mulțumesc că ați vizionat. La revedere!